Wow. Hello, hi, welcome back. Well, actually, welcome. It's been a year, so especially for some of you, welcome to the first time you're probably seeing this. Where once a year, we're in our annual Commander deck update slash showcase, where I come on here at least once a week, show you where my current commander collection is at the time of recording. Which every year I try to just show you kind of what's been going on. If you don't know the backstory is that I have I pulled away from Commander, but I still keep up to date to some extent. Like I try to keep what I have built up to date as best to my abilities. And I have currently 4 Commander decks that are still in rotation. The Commanders haven't changed well, they haven't changed in a year. So it's mostly just cards in the 99 that have been updated. But I want to give people an idea of kind of what's been going on over the past year. A couple of sets have come out. I think some of the biggest ones, I think, is at the end of the last update, Final Fantasy was just coming out. So Final Fantasy, I believe, is now a year old. There's a few Final Fantasy cards in here. Well, I don't know if they're in specifically this deck, but they're in like some of the other decks I have. Beyond that, what else? I don't remember very much about what came out this past year. Eternities. I know Lorwyn and Strixhaven is the most recent set. I believe Strixhaven has been out for a few days now. But anyways, here is the Be'lakor deck, which is a Warhammer precon that has been upgraded to the best of my abilities. I've tried to keep as many of the Warhammer cards in the deck as I possibly could that fit the theme of demon tribal stuff. However, there's not a lot of demon support in the Warhammer precons. So I did make a lot of upgrades to the deck. I made it like definitely like a bracket 4 style deck, where because I don't have a lot of commander decks, a lot of the cards that get art upgrades end up trickling down to this deck. So things like Psychonic Rift, there's like, you know, base arts of Psychonic Rift. I mean, I can quickly, like, I'm Deadly Rollick, stuff like that. Like, to give you like a vague idea of like kind of what's been going on with these decks. This is kind of the one that gets the scraps of the other decks. Whenever I upgrade the art or the printing of certain cards, a lot of times I don't want to sell those cards off. There we go. So they go out, they end up in this deck. Anyways, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at everything. I've talked about this box in the past. This is a wood carved, well, not wood carved, but what is it? What's laser cut? Wood laser cut deck box. Very ornate. This was back when the precons were actually coming out. An independent company came out and made these deck boxes for them. Very nice. This is like one of the first runs of it, so a lot of details are probably more or less smaller than they ended up actually being at release. So with small wood carvings like this, you have to be really careful with them. This is not a deck that goes and leaves my house. I usually will grab just like another Game Janic deck box and use that instead. So the deck right over here. Here's Be'lakor. Here are the other accessories I use. Life counter. This is from the Secret Lair life counter thing. I forget the name of the deck, but it's like the double face one where it's like, oh, you know, a bunch of like random colorless cards that have double face cards, and ended up being really cool because it was like, what is it? Cute to mean. I forget the name of the actual Secret Lair, but where they have really badass art in the front and then like really cutesy art in the back. It was a really cool precon deck that they sold on Secret Lair that I was a big fan of. Here's a metal token. Nothing crazy about this one. And here is the main guy himself, Be'lakor. There is the Dark Master. Anyways, Be'lakor is a 6 mana demon noble legendary creature with flying, Prince of Chaos. When Be'lakor the Dark Master enters the battlefield, you may draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. So very demon centric. And then it has Lord of Torment. Whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So there is the linchpin of the deck. That's the idea. That's the whole reason why we're even building this, is because demons are cool. I mean, demons in Magic the Gathering are cool. Big mana, big power, big abilities, and you get like a really nice bonus. You get to not only draw cards, but you also get to ping your opponents for a ton of damage basically every turn if you can play a demon on every turn, which is ideal. By the time you have 6 mana, you should at least be dropping 1 demon a turn. I feel like that's a the baseline for Bellicor. I'm going to put him over there, but I don't think it's really going to matter. We're not going to really be able to see him very much. This time around, though, versus the past 2 attempts. This is the year 3. We're on year 3 of doing this. And I finally made changes to where I'm going to start looking at things. And it's slightly different order because I'm pretty sure most people want to see things like the main strategy. I don't think people are super interested in like, oh, counter spells and removal cards, board wipes, lands. So we're getting to the meat and potatoes right off the bat. So people who are interested can just see kind of like, what's the game plan of the deck? How are we actually progressing with this whole game plan? Why are we doing this? What is the point? Like, yes, you can have a deck full of like counter spells, draw spells, ramp spells, and that could literally be your 99. But without stuff like this, this is what makes the deck special, essentially. So we have about 24 cards in here. Before we get into the actual 24, though, I want to give you an idea of the mana value, the average mana value. The average mana value for this deck is 3.3, so a little higher than the average. I would say you want to aim around 2, mana value of 2.5, 2. If you can get it lower, cool, but you want it around 2. You don't want your mana, your mana curve to peak at 3. It's not the end of the world, but again, demons are very expensive creatures to cast and whatnot. Let me see if I can give you an idea of the types. Not that one, subtypes. Demons, we have about 21 demons in the deck. I assume that includes our commander over here. So about 20 demons in the deck. So that is what we currently have. We have a couple of tokens. We should technically have like copies, treasures, other demons, birds, but we only have the 1 demon token. I didn't bother adding in other ones. As far as like our color balancing is concerned, it does definitely lean heavier into the Rakdos color. So we're definitely leaning heavier into the black cost. Hey, and I'm doing a commander showcase. So right now, this is an annual stream that I do where I talk about the commander decks I have. Currently, I'm looking at Bellicor. So once a year, I come on here and talk about the different commander decks because I don't play a lot of commander. So there are very few updates that I need to make on the actual card game. So currently, I'm just kind of going through kind of what the deck stats are right now. And then we're going to be going through the individual cards, showing off what I have in this and kind of trying to justify to people who might want to know what's going on in here, why I have the cards in here. But yeah, right now, we lean a little heavier into black. Red is, we're getting close to like evening out on red. Blue is where we're probably struggling the most with the deck though. So our blue production versus our blue cost is quite low. Blue production is a little higher. Black cost is high. Production is a little bit lower. And then red cost is high. And it's about the same with like, we lean heavier into Rakdos than we do into the blue. So as far as Grixis is concerned, we lean into the Rakdos part of the Grixis. But I do recommend building commander decks like that. If you're going to build a 3-color commander deck, I do recommend going heavier into 2 of the 3 colors and leaving your 3rd color as like a, what's the word? As an outside color, like as a 3rd unnecessary color. Like obviously blue for this deck in particular, it's probably going to be doing things like counter spells, draw spells. When am I going to do Timberborn? Timberborn is going to be, let me think. I think it's going to be Friday. Let's do Friday. So if you're interested, Friday, more Timberborn. I got some major updates from Timberborn. Spoilers, I almost killed off my colony off screen. So that was really stressful. I managed to save it, but man, it was hit or miss. So yeah, if you're interested, Timberborn will be back on Friday. For today, we're going to be doing Commander, and then Wednesday, we're doing Pokemon. On this time? Yeah, about this time. So around 12, because I know it's probably a little later for you. So if you got to go to bed, no problems. I'll catch you again on Friday. I do have a VOD. I do have last week's VOD up. If you haven't seen last week's VOD up, you can catch it there where... what did I do? Last week's VOD, I rearranged the living quotas. Half 10. Okay, so it's not too bad. But yeah, last week's VOD, I rearranged the Beaver's living quarters and started to rework some of the water storage. Like I'm starting to rework some of the storage and changing the layout of stuff. I did manage to get that water like when you were here last time, we were talking about doing a bad water redirection, like doing like a sewer system underneath the mountain. I had just done that. I just finished that on that stream. So yeah, I will catch you on Friday. Hopefully the beavers will still be alive. I did see it, or a part of it. Okay, so yeah, you know what's going on. You're up to date. Yeah, beyond that, off stream, I almost killed off my colony, so don't worry, the colony's fine. I just like, we had a really bad season, and I nearly killed it off, but we're fine now. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna keep talking about this. Keep talking about my Magic collection, because for those interested in Magic the Gathering, it's gonna be a pretty long ride. Whenever I talk about my Magic decks, like talking about 100 cards usually takes about like an hour and a half roughly. So, oh man, we got a lot of cards to cover. But anyways, yeah. So there are some of the stats for the deck. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and get started with the main plan, our main engine of the deck. The whole reason we're even doing this. So let me put this over here. I'll grab the first card. I do play that on my well. I do play that, not bit a friend of mine. Well, hold on. I can decipher it. I do play that, I do not play that, but a friend of mine does. I think that's what the translation is. So it's okay. I like Magic the Gathering. Like, Magic is a very, despite what's been going on with all right, I got it. Don't worry. I got you, man. But yeah, despite what's been going on with Wizards of the Coast, I think Magic, specifically Commander, is still a fun game to play. So I would recommend it. It's a very casual card. It's a very casual card game. So it's not super competitive. You're not really going to sweat it out with someone. Losing is actually not like the end of the world, like versus other games. Like for me, One Piece, whenever I play the One Piece TCG, losing feels so much worse than it does with Magic. So, and then you get to do fun little, tricks, some fun combat tricks with Commander. You get to spend big mana on some big spells. Like a lot of this deck is just like really big creatures. But yeah, the only downside is that Magic is kind of expensive. There's no two ways about it. Trying to play Magic is pretty bad. You can play Pauper. Pauper is about as cheap as the game can get. But Commander, it's like the third or second most expensive way to play Magic. The nice thing about Commander is that it's a singleton format, so you only need one card. So if a card ends up costing $10, you only have to pay $10 once. You don't have to buy like 4 copies of Archfiend of Depravity. So that's why I like it. That's why I like Commander. But I will not sugarcoat it. This game is very expensive. That's the one downside, I think, is that Commander is unnecessarily expensive. But there are ways to make it cheaper. Like, for instance, I probably should have started with this, with the cost of the deck. As of right now, Be'lakor the Dark Master is a bracket 4. So based off Architect, I use Architect to build my decks online. And the bracket that it's estimating is that this is a bracket 4 deck, which means it has a bunch of game changers. And the salt sum, which is about, difficulty curve, is about 4.6, which is over the average. So the average is usually around 3.9. So we're just over the salt sum. So there's some pretty nasty cards in here. And the estimated cost is a little over 1,000, considering it was a pre-con deck. That's why it's just over 1,000. Thankfully, a lot of the land base does reduce the cost of this deck because I didn't push a lot of money into the land base. A lot of the theme for this Warhammer deck is in the land base. A lot of cards in like the 99 are not necessarily Warhammer themed. Some of the ramp is Warhammer themed. But in a minute, I'll show you kind of the stuff that did get upgraded. Like, for instance, this card right here, the Archfiend of Depravity, which, let me go grab it. There we go. Now, let me make sure my thumb is not like, there we go. So you can see the whole thing and I can read it out. So, Archfiend of Depravity is a creature. It's a 5-mana creature. Flying. At the beginning of your opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures he or she controls, then sacrifices the rest. This originally used to be a board wipe, but it got replaced relatively, like about a year ago. So now it's just in the 99. It's a really well statted creature. Well, a good statted demon creature. 5 mana for 5 power. That's 5 damage to your opponents. Pretty good alongside Bellicor. You're not taking a ton of damage, you're drawing a lot of cards, and you're dealing a bunch of damage to your opponent, so still pretty good, still worth having in the deck, even though it has 2 black pips, which can be a little rough. But thankfully, like I said earlier, we do lean a little heavier into the Rakdos color, so we have more black and red production in our mana base. So as long as we're not like too heavy into blue creatures, we should be fine. So Valor is a 5 mana creature. This is the double red pip one. Flying, whenever this attacks or dies, choose a 1 or more. Each must target a different player. So target opponent draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at a random. Target opponent sacrifices a non-token artifact, and then this creature deals damage to each target opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. So very interesting. You can if you don't want to use all 3 effects, because you have to choose 3 different opponents. Let me double check. Different players. So you could choose yourself. If you want, you could do the draw 3, discard 3. Not super good on your end. You do get a little deeper into your deck, but you are discarding 3 random cards that you drew. So it could be bad if you don't have a very big hand size. And then the other 2 effects are just like, are just a way to wash out your opponent. And then not only on top of that, you're getting a 5 mana or a 5 power creature for 5 mana. Very efficient, very cost efficient with Bellicor on the field. So the next one is going to be Blood Crusader of Khorne. It's a 3 or 4 mana creature, 3/3. Trample. Other creatures you control have trample. That's really good. This is a good anthem for the deck. So any creature that, you know, even though a lot of demons do have the flying word or flying attribute, for those that don't, or for your opponent, if your opponent has like flying blockers, you can easily play this out and trample over them without any worry. So you can still get the damage in and not worry too much about that. Bloodthirster, 6 mana creature, 6/6, flying and trample. This guy doesn't have to worry about anything. And it says whenever this deals combat damage to a player, untap it. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase. Bloodthirster can attack a player it had already attacked this turn. So this is a way to get extra, like this is a good way to squeeze out an extra piece of combat. This would probably be better if you had a way of untapping your other creatures. However, just being able to use this one creature to attack each opponent on the field for 6, pretty good. Especially because it has trample built in, so it means you're going to get the damage in, you're going to get that extra combat. If you have a way of taking advantage of the extra combat steps, great card to have. However, in this deck, it's just a well-statted demon creature that we get to play out. Our next one is going to be part of the theme, Chaos Defiler. This came in the pre-con. It was a 5 mana artifact creature with trample, and this has whenever this enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent, choose a non-land permanent card, or no, choose a non-land permanent that player controls, destroy one of them, then chosen at random. So this will just randomly get rid of a non-land permanent. It's just great removal. Obviously a little bit random, but it's not a problem because we have a pretty good stat demon that will just randomly just kill something. And if it gets dealt with, it gets to destroy something else. So you get a lot of value out of this. The unfortunate thing is that you can't target anything in specific. You can sort of target some stuff, but at the end of the day, it's going to destroy something at random. So our next one is Chaos Terminator Lord. This is a 4 mana creature, Astartes Warrior, so it doesn't play into the demon theme, but it does care about demons. And it says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains double attack until the end of turn. Well, okay, not demon, not demon relevant, but it is Warhammer relevant. So it gets into the deck. It gives something double strike, which could be useful for something like, you know, Chaos Defiler or Bloodthirster, where you give them double attack, they get trampled, then you get a ton of extra combats, or you get to destroy a bunch of things on the field. It does have pretty decent synergy in the deck. And then Flame Shadow Conjuring is a 4 mana enchantment, which has whenever a non-land or whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay red. If you do, put a token on the battlefield that is a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next end step. Create a copy of that creature. Okay, so if I know this correctly, making copies on the field of creatures you own does still proc your Bellicor trigger. So for instance, if we were to do what, Bloodthirster, if we could somehow get Bloodthirster out on the field, we can pay 1 extra red to basically copy this creature on the field. Bellicor will see it again, and then instead of doing 6 damage to each opponent or to target something, we can either target an opponent or target a creature. Instead of doing 6 damage to something, we can do 12 damage to something. So really good, really great copying spell. You're going to notice that for the Bellicor deck, you're going to want a lot of copy spells, a lot of ways to clone your creatures. Our next one is the Great Unclean One. It is a 5 mana creature. It has, what is that? Reverberating Summons. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 2 life. Then, for each opponent who has less life than you, create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plague Bearer of Nurgle. So this makes demons. Obviously, they're really small demons. I mean, they're good blockers, but it's a 1 demon. It's going to do 1 damage with Bellicor on the field. It's pretty good because it's just a way to consistently make bodies. If you can keep your life above your opponent's, which in this deck, it can be kind of hard considering that Bellicor is, you know, pinging you for damage whenever you cast a creature, well, whenever you cast a demon. But there is some ways to gain life in this deck. It's not the end of the world. So it is possible to keep this engine consistently going. Let's see. Oh man, this one's gonna be tough for me. Let's see. Hisugue. Devouring Chaos is a 4 mana creature, 4/4. It has pay 1 black, sacrifice a creature, scry 2, not bad. And then it has another one, a pay 2 generic, pay 1, tap this, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. When you exile a non-land card this way, this card deals damage equal to the exile card's mana value to any target. So a really good way to get some value out of the high cost mana creatures that we do run. There's a few cards like this. I think there's like 1 other card like this that cares about the mana cost of our demons. So not bad. It does tap itself, so it becomes a little less useful, but it is good to keep. Actually, speaking of which, the other card that does something similar is right here, and it is Keeper of Secrets. Is a 6 mana creature, 6/4, first strike haste. It has Symphony of Pain. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So obviously with these two, the Devouring Chaos and Keeper of Secrets, you can do a lot of damage to someone because they're both dealing damage based off of mana cost. So Hisugue can cast something from exile, then Keeper of Secrets sees that being cast from exile, and then deals damage to you on top of that. Well, on top of this also doing damage. So this plays it from exile, deals damage with mana value, and then this sees that happen and then does it again. And then guess what? Bellicor sees that happening and then it's like, all right, another one. So yeah, these 3 can definitely cause a ruckus on the field if left unchecked, which is why I like keeping these in the deck. Next one is actually more of a, I've talked about it in the past. I do have a couple of pet cards that I like to keep in the deck. A lot of universes. I mean, technically this whole deck, most of this deck is Universes Beyond. So I'm not worried about that part of the deck. I don't mind playing with Universes Beyond. But as far as like synergy wise, there's not really any synergy with this card in the deck. I just really like Kefka. Kefka is one of my favorite villains in Final Fantasy. And I did see that recently. He's going to be in Final Fantasy 14. He's going to be in the next expansion, I believe. So I'm really excited to see that. So Kefka, Court Mage, is a 5 mana creature, legendary, human wizard, so it doesn't synergize because it doesn't have the same type. Whenever this enters or attacks, each player discards a card. Then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. So basically, whenever this attacks, or whenever it enters the battlefield, your opponents will discard a card not at random, but your opponent will discard a card. Your opponents will discard a card. Depending on the types they discard, you're going to draw cards equal to that. So best case scenario, you're going to be drawing 3 cards. Your opponent's going to be your opponents are going to be discarding each 1 card. And best case scenario, you're going to be drawing a total of 3 cards from them. However, a lot of times your opponent do coordinate with what they do discard. So a lot of times they'll just discard artifacts, mana rock, stuff like that. Things that they don't technically need by the time this hits the board. However, you're still forcing them to discard cards in hand. So they're going down in card size. Or they're going down in cards in hand, which is good for you. And then regardless, you are still drawing a card. And it's when it attacks. So you could stay aggressive with this and still attack. It does have a second ability, but the second ability doesn't really matter. It's an 8 cost. Let's see, 8. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent of their choice. Transform this. Activate only as a sorcery. So the activation cost is not that bad because it does force your opponent to sacrifice stuff on the board. But realistically, you don't normally want to flip this. Kefka, Ruler of Ruins, is a flying creature. Whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. It's pretty good. The art looks awesome. A lot of the reason why I wanted this card is because also the art looks really cool. But 99% of the time, I'm not trying to flip this. I'm just trying to keep it on its front face. You know, 8 mana to force your opponents to discard creatures or to sacrifice creatures. Or permanents. I mean, they can sacrifice the land if they want. That's not the end of the world. You're paying 8 mana for your opponent to sacrifice maybe a land or a soul ring, something like that. And then you transform it to a 5/7 that has flying and lets you draw cards on life loss, something like that. But realistically, this is mostly just here for me. This is not really a card that synergizes with the deck. Thankfully, it's a good card, but I just really like it because I think it's a cool card. Next one is going to be Kindred Charge. Kindred Charge is a 6 mana sorcery. Choose a creature type. For each creature you control of the chosen type, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of your next end step. Again, very similar where you choose, obviously you're going to choose, well, when you play this out, whatever demon you play out afterwards, you're going to get to make a copy of it. And then that copy is also going to get used to ping your opponent. So really cool. Still worth playing in this deck. Surprisingly, it's like almost a $10 card, which is crazy to me because I don't even think I bought it for $1 back when I was putting this deck together. So here's another one of those cards that you did see in the past, but it is still just one of those pet cards that I don't want to get rid of and I don't really have a home for, so this is the best place to put it. Nicol Bolas the Ravager. This is a 4 mana creature, legendary creature, with flying. When this enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. So again, funny enough, very similar to Kefka, but Kefka is slightly better because it also does it when it attacks. And then we do have a transformation cost with 7 mana. Exile this, then return it to the battlefield, transformed under its owner's control. Again, do this as sorcery. Kefka, similar thing where you're paying 8 mana, transforming, but your opponents do have to sacrifice permanents for it. So Kefka is technically like an upgraded version of Nicol Bolas, which is crazy to think about. So the Nicol Bolas, the Arisen, this is part of the secret layer I was talking about. So if you remember earlier on the video, I was talking about where I got this. This came from a secret layer. This was part of that secret layer. So Nicol Bolas is +2, Planeswalker. So it's a Planeswalker, +2, draw 2 cards, -3. Nicol Bolas deals 10 damage to target creature or Planeswalker, -4. Put target creature or Planeswalker card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That's okay. And then -12, exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. That's probably where you want to be going. But realistically, the +2, draw 2, that's really good. You can just do that and be happy with it. Doing a -4 immediately is actually not a bad idea because with the amount of demons we have in this deck, you can get a pretty big blocker to protect Nicol Bolas as you're +2ing the entire time. And then if you ever get the chance, you could -12. I don't think, realistically, by the time you get to -12, Nicol Bolas is very likely dead. So I wouldn't necessarily aim for the ultimate. But as like just a card in the 99, I think, again, similar to Kefka, it is just a good enough card to leave in the 99 to justify in the 99. It doesn't synergize with the deck, but it is good enough to just keep in there. And it's a card I like, so I'm going to keep it there. Our next card is, well, didn't mean to do that. Nurgle's Rot. It's a 1 mana enchantment. So enchant creature an opponent controls. When the enchanted creature dies, return Nurgle Rot to its owner's hand, and you create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plague Bearer of Nurgle. This is such a good card. I really like playing this card in this deck. It is great because it's a card that never leaves your hand, very rarely leaves your hand unless your opponent's trying to actively get rid of it. It's something that you're always gonna get something out of it. You're always gonna get something out of it. Your opponent will either block with the creature that's enchanted or that creature will just never do anything. It's great. I like this. Worst case scenario, you pay 1 to make a 1/3 token at some point in the game. So there are games where this doesn't do much. I find that in every game I draw this, it's always a bomb. I always like it. It's always a really good value engine to have in the deck. Next card is actually a newer card. So this is gonna be one of the newer cards we've seen that got recently added. This is from Edge of Eternities. No, is it? Where are you from? I mean, I see what it is, but I want to see if I can figure out where yeah, Edge of Eternities. So this is mostly like new card syndrome. I added this in thinking it was going to be better than it actually is, and it ended up not being that great. So this card's probably going to get cut sometime in the near future. I just have to I already know kind of what I want to put in here. I don't think it's going to be great, but Echo Casting Symposium. So Echo Casting Symposium is probably going to get put in here to replace this. However, Echo Casting is a blue card, very, very blue heavy. How you doing? Yeah, welcome back. I'm still talking about Magic. But yeah, the Pain for All was a card that I read originally that I thought was going to be really good. Did need to play chess. Okay, cool. Yeah, hopefully you did good. I know chess takes a lot of brain power, so I do not envy you. I played maybe a handful of games of chess, but chess is not my cup of tea. It takes like, you make one wrong move and you basically lost the match if you're up against somebody who is like competent at the game. So yeah, hopefully you did good. But yeah, Pain for All is a enchant creature you control. When this, hold on, get this out of my way. Okay. When this enters, enchanted creature deals combat damage equal to its power to any other target. So again, did lose sadly. Oh, very unfortunate. Well, you'll get them next time though. Trust me. The nice thing is that if you lose fast. So that's one good thing, is that games go fast with chess. I do know that. I know that from experience. So Pain for All has a very similar ability to Bellicor, where you're gonna do damage based off your enchanted creature's power. However, the second part of this is not that great. So paying 3 mana to do like your commander's ability is not my cup of tea. So the second part of this whole thing is whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each target opponent. So it's kind of like a stuffy doll effect, sort of, but it doesn't give your creature indestructible. It's nice because it makes your aggressive creatures more aggressive. It only took 15 minutes. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, I when I have played chess, I do remember them being pretty fast games. 15 minutes sounds about right though. I think, what is the limit on a game? Like 30 minutes? I think the limit's 30 minutes on a chess game. Don't exactly know. Don't take my word for that. I'm not a chess expert. Our next card is Pink Horror. Pink Horror is a 5 mana creature. Demon Horror. It has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Pink Horror deals 2 damage to any target. Pretty good. We have the split ability where it says, when this dies, create 2/2 black and red Demon Horror creature tokens named Blue Horror with, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature deals 1 damage to any target. So this is basically, what's a good way to explain this? It's pretty good. What is it? Stormkiln Artist, as I believe the parallel to this card. I'm going to leave this. Okay, yeah, no problem. No, you don't feel obligated to stay if you don't have to. You don't have to, you know, you can jump in and out whenever you please. You know, I'm here regardless. But yeah, what's cool about this card is that it's a bit like a Stormkiln Artist, where you're casting instants of sorceries, which are pretty heavy in this deck. Let me see if I can find the numbers for types. Instants, we have 16. And then where is our sorceries? Only 7. So we don't have a ton. I thought we had a lot more than that. But it feels like I have more than that. I feel like I have like over 20 instants and sorceries in this, but we have technically below. And probably because I usually try to cast my sorcery spells like a lot. So I always feel like I do get decent value out of this. So it deals damage. And then the second ability is basically the Saw in Half ability, where if this creature dies, it basically makes 2 copies of itself that do slightly less damage, but are still pretty good. So basically, it's a card that can recur itself once, and then pretty good. Also a demon. 4 mana, 4/4. Good value. Still worth playing in this. Next one is going to be Rakdos Joins Up. I was very apprehensive to add this card to the deck. I did not like Thunder Junction. I think in a different world, if Thunder Junction would have came out like 5 years before, I think I would have been a much bigger fan of Thunder Junction, because like, who doesn't like the idea of Magic the Gathering in the Wild West? I feel like that's a cool idea. Unfortunately, I feel like the execution of Thunder Junction was poorly handled. It really did feel, to me, the story felt very half-baked. A lot of characters were just there just to be there. It didn't feel like it was really necessary. It was also the introduction to Loot, I believe. I think Loot was introduced in Thunder Junction, which I just am not a fan of Loot. I know people like him now. Like, Loot's a lot more of a... I'm talking about the set now. Loot is definitely like a very obvious like corporate plant to be the mascot of Magic the Gathering. People like them now. People like Loot now. I'm a little more warm towards it, but when it originally came out, it felt very forced. And for the vault to have Loot in it, very stupid. I did not like that. I didn't like that play on words, and I didn't like the design of the character initially. It's starting to warm up on me. I'm starting to like Loot a little bit more, but I think I like Loot more now because he's not in the limelight. Because I guarantee you, if he shows up for more than one set, like if he shows up in like 3 sets back to back, I'm going to start disliking that guy again. But for now, since he's not been in the limelight, I'm okay with him now. You know, I don't want him to be like showing up constantly being the center of attention. But okay, that's enough about Thunder Junction. Rakdos Joins Up is a 5 mana legendary enchantment. When this enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with 2 additional 1/1 counters on it. So that's great because you can reanimate a demon and then it comes in with more power than it did originally. So the cost is far better. 5 mana. So you could do like, so let's say for instance, we reanimate Pink Horror. Not a great target, but in this case, for 5 mana, we're reanimating a 6/6. So that's going to deal 6 damage and it's going to attack for 6. And overall, even though this is probably the worst thing you can reanimate with Rakdos Joins Up, there's some pretty big bodies in here that if you reanimate, you're getting a big value out of that. You're getting a huge mana discount with this. And then it has a second ability of whenever a legendary creature you control dies, Rakdos Joins Up deals damage equal to that creature's power to target opponent. There we go. There is justification for this card. It is doing same thing as Rakdos, as our Be'lakor over there. So regardless, even if the reanimation target is not great, we're still getting a decent enchantment on the field that is actually way better than Pain for All. Pain for All is an okay enchantment, but it's like a one-time ability. Rakdos Joins Up is at least a continuous effect and a reanimation target on top of it. So pretty good. I don't like Thunder Junction, but I do think this card is really good in the 99. Our next one is going to be another Rakdos card. Rakdos, Lord of Riots, is a 4 mana creature, 6/6. So imagine reanimating this. This is a really good target to reanimate. So you can't cast this spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. Pretty easy for us to do. Very low bar to entry. Flying Trample. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponent lost this turn. Very big. Huge. A lot of people have commander decks built around this guy alone. And you can kind of see why. This is a very aggressive Rakdos deck. And in the 99, this is even harder. This hits much harder, I think. And it's not that much harder to proc because you have a lot of aggressive bodies in the deck. So it's not like you're struggling to deal damage to your opponent. And to give your demons massive discounts based off of damage or based off of life they lost. Really big. A lot of times, like your things, well, it has to, is it creatures? Creature spells, yeah. So I'm trying to look for a creature spell. I guess, yeah, Kefka. Kefka, you can do like a 2 mana discount on it. So pretty good. Rite of Replication is a 4 mana sorcery. This is one of the cards I love casting. I love this card. This has become definitely like a top 10 card in the deck. I love casting this. Rite of Replication is a 4-mana sorcery with the kicker of 5. Create a token that's a copy of target creature. If this spell was kicked, create 5 copies of that token instead. So obviously, the biggest combo you can pull off with this deck is you're gonna cast your Bellicor. And then your next turn, unless you have a lot of mana, your next turn, you're gonna cast Rite of Replication for, what is it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, for 9 mana. For 9 mana, that's a lot of mana, but for 9 mana, this is definitely like a I win button. So I feel like it's justifiable. And you windmill this down, you make 5 Bellicors, each Bellicor sees each other and starts like just dealing damage everywhere. You're doing like probably what, 150 damage throughout the whole table, doing like 160. I don't know. I used to remember the math. But basically, you cast Rite of Replication for kicked. If you do the kicker, you're basically winning the game because it's doing more than enough damage to each opponent, especially by the time you have 9 mana. By the time you have 9 mana, each opponent is roughly going to be around like 20 or less, 20 life, around 20 life. Unless you're playing against an opponent who does life gain stuff, which, you know, obviously you can then just focus all the damage to that one opponent that's gaining life. So you're doing well over 100 damage to each opponent. So, or to the board in general. So if there's like a problem body, you can just zap it, and then you can do the rest of the damage to each opponent. It's great. I love this card. This card's so much fun. And then another card is going to be Saw in Half. I believe, well, there it goes. This was in the deck before, but I don't think I had this version of it. I think this Secret Lair came out around the time I did the last video, the last stream. So Saw in Half is a 3-mana instance. Destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except their power is half that creature's power and their toughness is half that creature's toughness. Run up to each time. So this is pretty cool. Obviously, what we're doing with this is we're targeting our own creatures. Because you target like Rakdos, you can destroy Rakdos, and then you get 2 Rakdos that are 3/3s that still have this effect. So you're getting even more discounts. And then you're dealing, you know, the initial cost is 6, or you're dealing 6 damage. Then you're playing Saw in Half on Rakdos, and you're creating 2 creatures that are 3/3. So you're still doing 6 damage again for the cost of 3 mana. So that's great. And then you just get to double up on this discount ability. So great card. You could technically target your opponent's stuff. There's very few creatures that you want to target on your opponent's side of the field, unless it's like, I don't know, a Colossal Dreadmaw. Like if your opponent has like a colossal, like if your opponent just has some big butt creature, you can Saw in Half it and make it much more reasonable to deal with. So our next card is going to be Sword of Hearth and Home. It's a 3-mana artifact. It has equipped creature gets a 2/2, and it has protection from green and from white. Pretty good for the deck because we don't play any of those colors. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own, then search your library for a basic land card. Put it both onto the battlefield under your control, then shuffle. Equipment costs of 2. So this is very cool, because basically we now can do blinking strategies in our Grixis deck. So we can blink Rakdos, ramp our cards, you know, ramp a basic land, and still do a lot of damage out on the field. So really good card in the deck. Awesome art, by the way. I don't know if you got like a good look at the art or not, but very cool. Very cool stuff. And then our next one, we're getting towards the end of the main strategy of the deck. Valgavoth, Terror Eater. This is another one of those like, ooh, big fun toy to play with. I don't know if it actually synergizes with the deck, but I mean like big demon, of course, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a 9 for a 9/9. So it's a lot of 9s. So if you can cast this for 9, you're gonna do 9 damage to each opponent with Bellicor on the field. But other than that, it has Flying Lifelink, Ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. Pretty decent. If your opponent does target this, you have to sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, which, you know, is like Eldrazi adjacent, which is good. If a card you don't control would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So keep in mind, the Ward effect forces your opponent to sacrifice stuff. So instead of going into the graveyard, they are now going to exiled. And then it says, during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to the mana value rather than pay its mana cost. So again, if your opponent does target this, they have to sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. They then get exiled, and then you get to choose if you want to play any of those things that were sacrificed for life. So with enough life, you can basically play whatever the hell you want that your opponent just sacrificed. Not bad. It's a very big I win card. So obviously for 9 mana, you want like a big splashy spell like this, so that's why I like it. Our next card is going to be Warstorm Surge. This is the Warhammer art one, so of course it's going to be in the deck. And it says, for 6 mana, it's an enchantment that whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So again, we're getting that Be'lakor effect onto an enchantment. It's not a one-time deal, so it's continuous, which is nice. And then probably here's the life gain strategy. You know, the only way we're going to mitigate losing so much life is with this one card, essentially. I mean, there's a couple of other cards, like I think Valgavoth had like lifelink. Yeah, Valgavoth has lifelink, but we're not really playing him for the lifelink. We are playing Whip of Erebos, though. This is a 4 mana legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have lifelink. That is the primary thing we are doing with this. However, the secondary effect is actually pretty good for the deck, because for 4 mana, tap this, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate this ability anytime you could cast a sorcery. So, again, really great ability for Be'lakor, because then all your like big mana creatures, like for instance, Valgavoth, instead of being 9 mana, is now 4 mana to cast. Granted, it's only for a turn, but you know, dealing 9 damage randomly to an opponent is devastating. It's quite cool. So there's the main strategy. That is basically what we're looking at here. This is how the deck is running. This is basically what you want to be doing 90% of the time. These are the cards that you're casting against your opponent. And while maybe it's not the most optimal way to play, I do like this in the deck. And now I'm going to be showing you all the other cards that are here to support this strategy. So everything else is just here to make sure that the deck doesn't immediately explode. Because as you can imagine, playing your commander out at 6 mana is quite daunting. It's not really something you want to be doing, but it's something you're going to do regardless. So let me make sure I grab all the right stuff. And then for some reason this got disorganized somehow. Yeah, I don't know why it was organized like this. I was a fool. But yeah, anyways, first ones are the protection spells. So protection is basically things that can do, in this deck, counter spells, primarily counter spells. Other forms of protection are like hexproof, shroud, you know, those kind of things. Phasing out, blinking technically is a form of protection. But in this deck, our primary source of protection is counter spells. So this is the Swan Song from the Lord of the Rings set, the original one, the one that they're making a new one pretty soon. This is a 1 mana instance, 1 blue, counter target enchantment, instance, or sorcery spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 bluebird creature token with flying. Pretty good. Basically, getting rid of your opponent's big problem spell is good for 1 mana. For an instance, 1 mana. So if your opponent tries to react to something you did, you can then be like, nope, and just get rid of it. They get a 2/2 flying bird, which obviously a lot of our creatures are flying, so we don't want them to get blocked by some random bird, which is why we have things that give trample. But regardless, I mean, this is fine. This is not the end of the world. Our next one is a more recent card. This one probably came out the most recent. Well, no, maybe. This might be the newest card in the deck. It is Redirect Lightning. It is a 1 mana instance. This is a lesson. It says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 5 life or pay 2 extra mana. So obviously we're going to pay the 5 life. We're paying 1 red. Change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. What's nice about this is that not only are you redirecting a spell, but you do get the option to redirect an ability to a different target. So in a scenario where our opponent has a Bellicor, so if we're going up against a mirror match, we can use Redirect Lightning to redirect the second ability back to our opponent's Bellicor potentially. So our Bellicor only has 5 toughness. So if your opponent's Bellicor is trying to deal 6 or 7 damage to you, you can then redirect it back into him and basically get rid of your opponent's commander. So that's one strategy you can do with this. It's an instance, so you can do it on your opponent's turn. It's a great card. I love these kind of things. Paying 5 life in commander is not a big deal, so I wouldn't worry too much about that part of it. Here's a game changer. I think this is our first game changer we've seen in the deck. So Fierce Guardship is a 3 mana instance. However, we're never paying 3 because it says, if you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. So it's free. And it has counter target non-creature spell. Basically, anything your opponent tries to do that isn't a creature is basically void. Granted, keep in mind, this is not a great counterspell in the deck, but it is a free counterspell in the deck. The reason why it's not good in the deck in particular is because Bellicor is 6 mana. So you're having to wait until you have 6 mana to cast Bellicor. And then if your opponent tries to get rid of it, you can then counter with a Fierce Guardship. It's always a good gotcha card. That's why it's a game changer. It's a great card to have. Our next one used to be I think this used to be a game changer. I think they just recently changed it, but that's fine. It doesn't matter because it is Deflecting Swat. Deflecting Swat is a 3 mana instance. If you control your commander, you can cast this for free. You may choose a new target for target spell or ability, as we talked about earlier. Redirect Lightning is the same thing, but we're paying one red. This is free. Granted, this is free when our commander is out. Otherwise, it's a 3 mana spell. Again, late game, not the greatest, but it is good when you have your commander out and you need to protect your commander. You can always do this for free. Our last one is for the strategy. So this is part of the theme. It is a Warhammer card, a really good Warhammer card. Thank goodness. It's actually kind of expensive now. I remember picking this up for less than $5 back when it came out. But Darkness is a 1 mana instance that says prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So if your opponent is trying to go for a big alpha swing, you can cast this in response and basically take no actual damage. Combat damage, to be precise. If your opponent's trying to redirect attack, or if your opponent is doing like an ability that attacks you or that deals damage to you, that's something completely different from combat damage. So do keep that in mind. Our next one is going to be our target removal. So if our opponent has a creature that we don't want on the field, we basically play these cards to get rid of it. And as you can see, our first one is from Phil Fulger. Sorry. This is a very old Magic artist. It is Phil Foglio. This is a very old Magic artist. I really like this Magic artist because a lot of his original art design, a lot of his original cards look very silly. And then he did come back and make a couple of new cards. This was one of the new cards he made recently, where it's basically Chaos Warp. Chaos Warp is not a new card, but this is relatively new art from Phil that I think looks really cool. I like the way it looks, and it is foiled, so I'm quite happy with that. Chaos Warp is a 3 mana instance. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So basically, if your opponent has something like a, I don't know, Craterhoof Behemoth, for 3 mana, you can basically tell them to shove it. You can tell them to put it back into their deck, and they shuffle their deck, and the top card of their deck, if it's a permanent, they get to put it onto the battlefield. So there's a bit of a give and take with this one. It's a good removal spell. It's not the best removal spell, obviously, but it's pretty good. And it's not a feel bad. It's kind of like it can make the situation worse. It can make the situation better. It just depends. I love cards like this. So, I do try to make room for it. It's Iconic Rift. Here's another game changer. It's dropped in price, but not, that doesn't mean much for a $40 card. Iconic Rift is a 2 mana instance. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Has an overload cost of 7. You may cast it for its overload cast. If you do, change the target into each. So this is great. Very infamous card. For 2 mana, you can bounce an opponent's thing back to hand. However, a lot of times, 90% of the time, you're casting it for the overload, and you're getting rid of your opponent's whole board. This doubles as removal. It doubles as board wipe. It's a good card. There's a reason why it demands such a high price. I love it. Deadly Rollick. Another free commander spell. It's 4 mana, but you know, in our case, it's going to be free whenever we cast it. It says exile target creature. So if your opponent, this is probably the weakest of the 3 that are in the deck, and there's a reason it's not a game changer. Because if you have a high cost mana, or if you have a high cost commander, you're kind of waiting a long time to cast this, because you really don't want to cast this for 4 mana. You can, but it's really bad. It does exile, which is good. You know, exiling things is better than destroying them, because playing cards out of exile is extremely hard versus playing them out from the graveyard. The next one is, oh man, this one's gonna be a tough one. Shadow, what is that? Shadow Range Artificer, Archfiend. So this is Archfiend. It's a 7 mana creature demon. When this enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices their creature with greater power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way. So you play this out. It then forces your opponent to sacrifice their biggest body on the field. And then whoever had the biggest body, you gain life based off of that creature's power. For 7 mana, for an 8/4, it's not bad for the Be'lakor deck, because paying 7 mana for 8 damage is not terrible. However, what makes this great is that it has Madness. Madness, it has a madness cost of 2 and a black, pay 8 life, and then you get to cast this from your hand. Basically, Madness, if I remember correctly, Madness is like whenever you go to discard a card from hand, instead of, if this is the card you discard, you can then in response pay the Madness cost and cast it for the Madness cost instead. So it's kind of a bit of a convoluted way to reduce the cost of a giant creature. However, jumping through the hoops, you get huge advantage. And I think it's completely worth it. Even if you end up paying the 7 mana, I don't even think it's that bad of a cost for such a big body. Granted, it has really low toughness, but we're not really worried about the toughness. We're more concerned about the power of the creature. So the Madness is what makes this like an A+ card. The fact that it's a demon with a high power is what makes it worth putting in the deck. Our next card is Wild Magic Surge. It's a 2 mana instance. It says destroy target permanent opponent controls. Its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a permanent card that shares a card type with the permanent. They put that card onto the battlefield and the rest to the bottom of their deck in a random order. So, very Chaos Warpy. It's not Chaos Warp, but it's Chaos Warp adjacent. It's 2 red pips, which is a bit difficult. It destroys a permanent, and then your opponent reveals cards until they reveal a card with the same type as the card that was destroyed, and then they get to put it onto the battlefield for free, where all the other cards go to the bottom of the deck. It's a little convoluted, but it's good removal. If your opponent played something big, like we said before, if your opponent plays a Crater Hub Behemoth, you could destroy it, and then your opponent gets to play another creature from the top of their deck. I can see that my internet is starting to crash out on me. That's awesome. I love that. So that's the target removal of the deck. Our next one is going to be board wipes. So a few extra board wipes. As you saw, board wipes are kind of like mixed into the other strategies. However, these are the cards that are purely dedicated to board wipes, which is Toxic Deluge. It's a 3 mana sorcery. As an additional cost of the spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X/-X until the end of turn. This is a great way to get around protection spells, a great way to get around indestructible, and overall, good card. I don't remember if it gets around hexproof. I think it gets around hexproof because it doesn't target. It just gives a blanket effect over everything, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this could get around hexproof. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Giving creatures -X toughness is ideal. Paying life to do that is even better because, again, with 40 life, you can do like 10. You can pay 10 life, get rid of everything on the board, and not feel the pain of it. Obviously, later in the game, it gets much harder to do, but early game, if your opponent has a bunch of tokens, it's really easy to pay like 1 or 2 life to get rid of tokens. So Rakdos, the Showstopper, is a 6-mana creature. It has Flying and Trample. When this enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. So, very situational board wipe, but being a huge demon that is going to do 6 damage to something at random or at someone at random, we also get the opportunity to destroy all their other stuff, depending on if we're lucky enough to get tails on the coin flips. Good board wipe, better creature. Rakdos is pretty cool. And then this is the really hard one. This is Blasphemous Act. By now, I'm pretty sure most people know what Blasphemous Act does. I'm going to see if I can just pull up the Oracle text for it. See how long it's going to take me to actually look at it. It's going to take... Okay, I'm just going to read this. So, Blasphemous Act is a 9-mana sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. So that's what this card says. It does say it on the card. It's just all over the place. So it's much easier to just look at a normal copy and just read it normally. So while it is a 9-mana board wipe, a lot of the times you're only paying like 1 or 2 mana for this, because you want to cast this when your opponent is too wide on the field. Dealing 13 damage is going to get rid of the majority of creatures on the board, unless they have like indestructible and stuff like that. It's also a card that looks really cool, and I like it. So I still choose to keep this version of the art on here, even though the original one still looks good. I just like the way this looks better. I think this looks cool. I love the cool movie poster look it has. And it was like one of the original movie poster designs that they did. Our next one is going to be our draw spells. So hang in there. We're getting through it. So as you can tell, I'm leaving all the more boring stuff at the end. For people who are interested in the good stuff, it's all like pushed in the front of this video. All the boring stuff is at the end of like, okay, here's all the cool spells. How are you going to cast all the cool spells, or how are you going to draw the cool spells? That is what the next like 3 categories are going to be about. So our next one is draw spells. So this one is Aspiring Champion, is a 4-mana Astartes Warrior. It fits the theme of Warhammer. So it has Menace, which is good. I think Menace, if I remember correctly, is it can't be blocked by 1 creature. It has to be blocked by 2 or more creatures if it attacks. It has, when this deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield. Then shuffle the rest into your library. If that creature is a demon, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. This is the card I was thinking about originally. This is the one that is demon focused. So it's completely fine to have in the deck, even though it's not a demon. It's pretty strong. Obviously, why isn't the draw spells? Oh, because we're revealing cards from the top until we play something. Okay. I kind of understand where my thought process was. It's a good card regardless. I think it's just an excuse to put it into a different category. Black Market Connections is a 3-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more. So you have to choose 1 at least. Minimum, you have to choose 1 of these. You can't just avoid it. So this has create treasure token for 1 life. Draw a card, you lose 2 life. Or it has create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling, lose 3 life. It's so hard. It's really hard to not just pick all 3 modes every single turn. You never want to do that. It's tempting, you want to do it, but paying 6 life every turn can kind of be a lot. Especially if you have your Whip of Erebos out. You can sort of mitigate some of that. But realistically, what you want to be doing with this is you really want to be making, you either want to draw spells or you want to create a demon, a 3/2 demon for free. For 3 mana, you can make a 3/3 or 3/2. And then your Bellacore does 3 damage to something on the board or to an opponent. So really good card. Each mode of this card is great. I think this is the Assassin's Creed. It is the Assassin's Creed one. Almost didn't realize that, because I think that the original art looks very similar to this. So next card, Blood for the Blood God. Big expensive spell. What is this? 9, 10. It's 11 mana. However, it's a 11 mana instance that this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. So of course, very famous combo is to cast this alongside your Blasphemous Act. Guaranteed to get the biggest discount out there. You're basically only paying the 3 for it. So discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile this card. So this is cool. I love this card. This is one of the biggest, splashiest cards that you can play. It's so much fun because you Blasphemous Act the board, and then you're like, oh, you thought it was over? Boom! Blood for the Blood God. And then you draw 8 cards. You do 8 damage. Oh, such a good time. I love Commander. It's so much fun. Stupid things like that make Commander fun. I gotta drink something. Oh, been talking for a hot minute, but that's fine. I only do this once a year. So next week, we're gonna be doing other decks. So be prepared for that. So next one is Brainstorm. It's a 1-mana instance. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand to the top of your library in any order. Not a very good card. Not a good card for Commander, ideally. You can set up your draws to be advantageous. However, it's here because it's a Warhammer card. You do go up 1 card in hand. But your next 2 turns, if you don't draw extra cards, your next 2 turns are going to be anticipated. You can either use that to your advantage or it is a detriment. You know, use at your own risk. Demonic Console is a 2-mana sorcery. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put it to your hand, then shuffle. Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead, search your library for any card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Obviously, we don't care about the Delirium part. It could be nice if you want to search out like Kefka. If you want to search out Kefka, you can do the Delirium part. However, for 2 mana, searching out whatever demon we want is ideal. Very ideal for us. I mean, you could also search out other like instants of sorceries like what? Rite of Replication. If you have the Delirium cost, you can do Rite of Replication. So not a bad card, just not super ideal. The next card is actually probably what you want to be focused on. It is going to be our next game changer. It's Gamble. Gamble, I'm so upset that Gamble is a game changer. I get it. I understand why. It's a tutor for any card. But it's a fun tutor. This is the tutor that can easily backfire on you. So Gamble is a 1-mana sorcery. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then discard a card at random, then shuffle your library. So this could very easily backfire on you. You tutor for something big. You shuffle your hand, you discard something at random, and 9 times out of 10, it's the thing you want. No, that's not true. But a lot of times, this can easily backfire on you. You can easily lose the card that you just tutored for. And it's just the way the game goes. I think this is a very fun tutor. I think it's a little unfair that it's a game changer. Because I don't think this is a bad ability. I don't think anybody's ever played a Gamble and felt like it's running away with the game. But I like this card. It's a game changer. It is what it is. I like it a lot though. Here's another Warhammer card. It is Lord of Change. It's a 7-mana creature that does not give itself any sort of discount, so you're boned if you want to play this. The stats are really bad. It's a 7-mana creature for a 6/6. You don't really like that. However, it has flying, it has ward 3. So if your opponent wants to target it, you have to pay 3 mana for it. And then it has, when this enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. It's a really bad card. I don't like it. However, it is a Warhammer card. So I do keep it in here because of the theme of the deck. I do try to keep as many of the Warhammer cards in the deck as I like, but it is not a good card, which is why everything else has been souped up to kind of like compensate for it. Rakdos, Patron of Chaos, is a 6-mana creature. It has Flying and Trample. At the beginning of each end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land tokens. Non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. A lot of times you're just going to draw 2 cards with this because a lot of your opponents don't want to sacrifice stuff. And if they do, it's to your benefit because they're sacrificing things they want. So it's a great card to have. Normally you're going to just draw 2 cards off of it though. Tallyman of Nurgle is a 3-mana creature, lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card and you lose 1 life. If 7 or more creatures died this turn, instead, you draw 7 cards and you lose 7 life. Pretty good. Again, If you follow this up with the board wipe, you get a big advantage with it. Our next one is Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls. This is a sick looking card, man. It is a 4-mana creature. It has flying, ward, pay 2 life. Whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a 1/1 counter on this and draw a card. Between the two Valgavoths, this one is far weaker, but the art of this one looks so cool. I forgive it. It's a 4-mana 4/4, so the return on the mana to power ratio is pretty good. But the ability, you're really not going to be you're not going to be proccing this thing. Like, it's not going to proc a bunch. Whenever opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a 1/1 counter on this and draw a card. It's not going to happen a lot. I can tell you that much. You're not going to get that ability off very much, but it is a cool card, and I think it's worth having in the deck. Here is another card that is a tutor, but is not a game changer. Varagoth, Bloodsky Sire, is a 3-mana creature. It has Death Touch, and it has Boast, pay 2. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffle their library and put that card on top of it. So this basically, Boast, if I remember correctly, Boast is whenever this deals combat damage to a player, you can pay the Boast cost, and then this basically searches your library. You can put a card on top of your deck, and that's it. So it's kind of like, what is it? Vampiric Tutor? I believe Vampiric Tutor is the one I'm thinking of. It's basically, it's a tutor that puts a card on top of your deck. So not great, but not terrible. Our next one, this is Villas, Broker of Blood. Is an 8-mana creature. It has flying, pay 1 or pay black, pay 2 life. Target creature gets a -1/-1 until the end of turn. Pretty good. Keep in mind, there's not a limit to this, so you can pay as much black and as much life as you want into this to essentially get rid of something. And then you get a bonus for paying life into it. Whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So you pay 1 black, you lose 2 life, you draw 2 cards, and you give something a -1/-1. And then that scales to however much life and mana you have on the board. Villas is such a good card. This is a great card. There was another demon that is like slightly better than this, but this is a really good replacement. The other card I'm talking about, the other demon I'm talking about, is banned in Commander. And Villas, I feel like, could get there. I feel like Villas could easily get banned if it gets picked up by enough people. So next one we're gonna be talking about ramp. So let's see. Here we go. Our ramp cards. Nothing crazy, but you know, we need ramp. And in Grixis, if you've ever played a Grixis deck, you know that ramp is basically only artifacts. There's like, you know, a few other cards that are not artifacts. But our first one is Arcane Signet. It's a 2-mana artifact. You tap it, you get 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Very useful because we get relevant colors. Dark Ritual is a 1-mana instance that gives you 3 black. Herald of Slanesh is a 3-mana creature that has demon spells cost 2 less to cast. Other demons you control have haste. Super bomb. I love this card. If you can tutor this out early, I would highly recommend it because it makes all your creatures attack immediately, and it does reduce their costs. Herald's Horn is a 3-mana artifact. When this enters, choose a creature type. We're choosing demons. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. That's great for us. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. Pretty good. It's like you can occasionally draw 2 cards for your turn, so not bad. Primarily, it is a mana reducer though. Jessica's Will is our next game changer, and it's going to be a 3-mana sorcery. Choose one. If you control your commander, as you cast the spell, you may choose both. Add mana for each card in target opponent's hand. It's really great. A lot of times you're going to get like 7+ mana for this. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. So super synergy. If your commander's out, which by the time you cast this, it should be out, you get a bunch of mana and a bunch of cards to exile to then play for the turn. Very good. Love Jessica's Will. Great card. Understandable why it's a game changer. Soul Ring is a 1 mana, 1 mana mana rock that makes 2 colorless mana. Absolutely needed in every, especially when you have a big mana spell. When you have a big mana commander, you need stuff like this. You can't really avoid Soul Ring in big mana spell decks. Urza's Incubator, 3 mana artifact. As this enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. Super good. Obviously, we always want to be playing this whenever we get the chance to. Our next one is Wayfarer's Bauble. This is primarily here because it's a Warhammer card. It's a 1 mana artifact that you can pay to, tap, sacrifice this, search your library for a basic land card, put that onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. We're kind of past that ability. I feel like we power crypt Wayfarer's Bauble, which is unfortunate because it used to be like a $2 card, I think. But now it's like a 10-cent card. Unfortunate, but great for people who want to actually play Wayfarer's Bauble. It's a great budget card. So I'm glad it's not expensive anymore, or it's not like $1. Next thing is lands. Just want to quickly show, I'm running 9 basics, 3 of each color, just to make sure. And they're all the Warhammer lands. So they're all the basic lands from the Warhammer deck. I think these are the lands specifically from the Chaos Precon. So if you wanted to know what they look like, this is, I think, the same art as the Warstorm Surge. So quite cool that we get like pretty similar art with our basic lands. Now, we're gonna look at the lands. Our land count is at 42. It's at 42 because we have MDFCs in the deck. So we have like what, 3 or 4 MDFCs in here? I think we have 3 from what I can see. Yeah, it looks like we have 3 of them. So it's like 49. You know, worst case scenario, we have 49. At most, we have 42. I like it. I'm okay with it. While the land base is not good with the precon, this is probably the thing that has the most of the precon in it. But there are some pretty strong lands in this deck. It's not super efficient, but every game I played with Velocore, the only thing I struggle with is just getting enough mana on the board. I never really struggle with colors. So I think it's pretty good. I think there's enough colors in the deck to justify it. In the future, I would like to get Starting Town and City of Brass for the deck. But that's like maybe a couple of weeks into the future. Those are really good lands. I recommend them in every deck that has more than like 2 colors or 2 colors and above. I would definitely recommend getting them, especially if you struggle with color fixing. I got those lands for my Space Godzilla deck, and it still doesn't work. But we'll talk about that when we get to that deck. Anyways, let's talk about our lands. We have Arena of Glory. Yeah, I can hold this. So Arena of Glory enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain. Not the end of the world. We can kind of, you know, tap or untap, it doesn't matter. It taps for a red, and then you can pay a red, tap this, exile this, add 2 red. If this mana is spent to cast a creature spell, it gains haste until the end of turn. Pretty good. You know, if you don't have a haste enabler, in a pinch, you can use this to give your creature haste and swing in with it. This is Blood Crypt. It is a dual land. It has, as this enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, this enters the battlefield tap. So most of the time you want to tap it, pay the 2 life. It's okay. Not the end of the world. Majuka Bog. This enters in tap. When this enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, and then it taps for black. Normally, depending on the types of your opponents, because some opponents might have graveyard decks, you want to just keep this in hand in case you're up against a graveyard deck. You never know when you're going to need it. It's great. Choked Astray. Yeah, Choked Astray. Estuary. Yeah, I would say Choked Astray. As this enters the battlefield, you may reveal an island or a swamp card from your hand. If you don't, this enters the battlefield tap, and then it taps for blue or black. So, it's a reveal land. You can reveal one of your basics in your hand, or anything that shares the type, I believe. Yeah, anything that has the island or swamp type, you can reveal. Otherwise, it enters in tap. Not the end of the world, it's fine. Command Beacon. Tap for a colorless, sacrifice this, put a commander into your hand from the command zone. So, if Velocore does get dealt with, paying 8 mana to recast it is difficult. So Command Beacon is great when Velocore does get dealt with, because eventually he's going to get dealt with. So you want to have a Command Beacon just in case you want to recast your commander again for 6 mana. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the commander tax. And then Command Tower, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Staple for every commander deck, no reason not to play it. Crumbling Necropolis is a tap tri-land. You can tap it for one of the 3 colors in Grixis. Not bad. Evolving Wilds. Sacrifice this, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. It's fine. Exotic Orchard. Tap this, add 1 mana of any color that land an opponent... Okay, that a land an opponent controls could produce. So we're tapping for either a color that we don't have, or we're going to tap for one of our 3 colors. I think in a 3-color deck, it's okay to play something like Exotic Orchard. You're not going to really get burnt by it, because chances are one of your opponents is going to have your colors. And then Fabled Passage. Tap this, sacrifice this, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. Then, if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. So you're getting the color fix with this. It can either be tapped or, you know, it can be untapped, depending on when you draw this. If you draw this early, it's going to be tapped. If you draw it late, it'll more likely be untapped. Bell the Profane. This is one of the MDFC lands. On the back, let me flip this so you can see what it does. So this is this is the front of the card. This is technically the front. Feldmeyer, as Feldmeyer enters the battlefield. Wait, no, is this the front? I think one of these is the front. I don't think it's this. It might be the land. That land might be the front of it. I don't remember. Anyways, when this enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, enters the battlefield as tapped, and then it taps for black. So it's just a more painful land because it, you know, taps for only 1 color and it makes you pay 3 life. But usually what's nice about the NDFC lands is that when you want, they can be spells. So you pay 4 mana, it's an instance, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Not a very good card, not a really good target removal. However, when you need it, it's a land. When you don't need it, you know, it's a, well, no, when you need it, it's removal. When you don't need it, it's a land. So because of the mobility of this card, I think it is definitely worth it. Our next one is Foreboding Ruins. This is a land. As this enters the battlefield, you may reveal a Swamp Mountain card from your hand. If you don't, this enters the battlefield tap, and then it taps for Rakdos. So black and red. Pretty good. You know, sometimes it's untapped, sometimes it's not. Depends on what you have in your hand. Mutavault is a colorless land, taps for colorless. You can pay 1. This becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types until the end of turn. It's still a land. So this card is not here to do damage because unless you have no. Okay, so this will never actually do damage with the Bellacore. However, this will let you draw cards if you choose to change this to a creature. So you can change this to a creature and then cast Bellacore. You will then draw cards off of this because of Mutavault, because it does increase your demon count. Let me see. Draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. So this counts as a demon. If you pay the 1, it's a demon. That is a 2/2. You won't be able to do damage, but you will be able to draw cards off of it. So that's why Mutavault's there. It's like, it's okay in the deck. I don't think it's like, if you want to change it out for something else, you can. I wouldn't be against it. Myriad Landscape is a tap land that taps for colorless, and then you can pay 2 and tap this, sacrifice it, search your library for 2 basic land cards that share a land type, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Pretty good. It's okay. It's okay, like slow land ramp. Thankfully, it does tap for colorless, so it does have a use. Otawara Soaring City is a legendary land that taps for blue. It has Channel. Channel is basically, you can choose to cast this from your hand for the channel cost. So the channel cost will be 4 mana, 1 blue. Discard this card. Return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So pretty good if you need to bounce something back to your hand. Can I choose anyone, or does it have to be my stuff? Target to its own. No, you can choose your opponent's stuff. So if you want to bounce something from your opponent's field back to their hand, you can. If you need to protect something, you can bounce it back to your hand. Really good Moto spell. It's very difficult to interact with because this is a channel ability. Channel abilities activate in your hand and can't really be interacted with. As far as I understand, there are very few cards that could interact with it. Path of Ancestry. This enters in the battlefield tapped. You can tap it, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When this mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that shares a creature type with your commander. Scry 1. Not bad. You can always slightly fix the top of your deck, and then you get to color fix as well. Sanctum of Eternity is a colorless land that if you pay 2, tap it, return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand. Activate this ability only during your turn. So again, very similar to Command Beacon, that if your commander is about to get destroyed in response, you can do this, but it has to be on your turn. So if your opponent tries to counter it, you can just use this ability to take it back to your hand so it doesn't hit the command zone and it doesn't get like commander attacks, essentially. So as best as you can, you try to avoid commander attacks when you can. Secluded Courtyard is a tap land. Is it? Actually, no. Enter the battlefield, choose a creature type. You can tap this for colorless, or you can tap this, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, or activate an ability of a creature or creature card of the chosen type. So not bad. Obviously we want to be casting a lot of demons, so we're going to be able to color fix for the demons that we need if we need to. Seething Landscape is a triumph. No, it's not a triumph. It's a colorless land that you can tap, sacrifice this, search your library for a basic island, swamp, or mountain card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. It has cycling for Grixis. So you discard this for the Grixis cost, and then you draw a card. But we're primarily trying to do this for color fixing. Sink into Stupor is a 3 mana instant. Return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. A bounce spell, pretty good. However, the reason why we run it is because on the back, or on the front, whichever it is a land that you can pay 3 life to untap it, and then it taps for blue. Again, keep in mind you don't have to pay the 3, but it is advantageous to pay the 3 if you choose to play it as a land, because then it's an untapped land that taps for a color. Steam Vents is a it has Island Mountain type, and then it has, as it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. 9 times out of 10, we want to pay the 2 life, otherwise it'll enter in tapped. Next one is Sunken Hollow, same thing, Island Swamp, that when this enters the battlefield, unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So what is this, the slow lands? I believe this is what they call slow lands. So it'll enter in tapped, sometimes it'll enter in untapped, other times. Not bad. Sunken Palace is a cave that enters the battlefield tapped, taps for blue, and then you can pay 2, tap this, exile this from your graveyard. Oh wait, no. Exile 7 cards from your graveyard, add blue. When you spend this mana to cast a spell or activate an ability copy that spell or ability, you may choose a new target for that copy. Okay, understood. So 7 cards from, so add that. When you spend this mana to cast a spell or an activated ability. So creature spells are considered spells. You could copy the ability of Bellicort if you wanted to. However, you could choose to just copy a creature card. So if you wanted to copy Rakdos, you could use the blue from this to double the Rakdos ETBs. Pretty good. So Temple of Empathy is a tap land that when it enters, you scry 1, and then it taps for either blue or red. Temple of the False God. This is a terrible land. You really shouldn't be playing this. However, I'm playing it in the deck because it is a really cool looking Warhammer card. I like the statue that's there. Fortunately, I can't really get it to focus. But yeah, you tap this, you get 2 colorless mana. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. 90% of the time, you are never going to control the lands when you draw this. So a lot of times, this is just a dead card in hand. It feels bad, but it fits the theme of the deck, so I'm choosing to play it. Terramorphic Expanse is a land that when you tap this, sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Some color fixing for cheap. Tomb Fortress is an artifact land, if I remember. No, it's not. I lied. Tomb Fortress enters the battlefield tap, then you tap it for red, or you tap it for black, and then you can pay 5 mana, 3 of which is black. Tap this, exile this, mill 4 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a kind of difficult, expensive reanimation spell, but in a pinch, you can reanimate something. It's a Warhammer card. I think it's okay. Unclaimed Territory is, as this enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're going to choose demons. It taps for colorless, or it can tap for 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. We're obviously color fixing. That's pretty good. Here is Volakut Stoneforged. This is the land side of it. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a red. However, it is then a spell, which is Volakut Awakening, and it is a, let me get my finger out of the way, an instance, 3 mana instance. Put any number of cards from your hand onto the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards, +1. So it's a good way to cycle cards from your hand in a pinch. I think it is decent. I actually do like this card. I think it is decent. It's a good way to, like, if you're bricked up, you can cast it and fix your hand a little. Otherwise, it's just a land that enters in tap. It's not the end of the world. War Room is a colorless land that you pay 3, tap it, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, which in this case, it would be 3. So we're going to pay 3, tap this, pay 3 life, you draw a card. Pretty good if you need to draw cards. Watery Grave, Island Swamp. As this land enters, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters in tap. So it's pain land. Well, I think, what is it? Shock is a shock land. So West Vale Abbey, very cute art. This is, again, from the same secret layer as where this thing came from and where Nicol Bolas came from. So I'll show you the back of it in a minute. So this is a colorless land that if you pay 5, you can tap it, pay 1 life, create a 1/1 human cleric creature token, and then it has a second ability of pay 5, tap this, sacrifice 5 creatures, transform this, then untap it. So as we transform it, it is going to untap into, what is that name? Ormondal, Profane Priest. Ormondal Profane Priest. So as you can see where the art for this card came from. Literally the same art. That's awesome. I love this. I love this card just for the art on the back. This is a legendary demon. Flying, lively, indestructible, and haste. It's a 9/7. The only thing that sucks about this card is that it's never going to proc your Be'lakor ability. Like, everything about this card works against the Be'lakor strategy, because you're having to sacrifice 5 creatures to then flip this into a demon. So that means chances are you're probably going to end up sacrificing 5 demons. You don't want to do that for 1 extra demon. Granted, the demon on the back is completely epic and you really want him on the field, but 9 times out of 10, this is just going to be a colorless land that will occasionally make a creature token. So, womp womp. It's a cool card. I think it looks awesome. I love the demon on the back of it, but it just doesn't work with the deck. But I keep it as just like a pet card. And then this is Xander's Lounge. Very cool looking tri-land. This is a tri-land that taps for any one of our 3 colors. This enters the battlefield tap though, and then it cycles for 3. So you pay 3, you sacrifice this. No, you pay 3, discard this, then draw a card. So Xander's Lounge, pretty good. I feel like nowadays Xander's Lounge is not as good as it used to be. It does have the 3 types, which is pretty good, but it enters in tap. There's no way to make it enter in untapped. A little unfortunate, but that is basically the deck. That's pretty much everything. And then obviously the basics of the whole deck. Here is the monster deck right here. It's like 100 cards right there. It's quite big. And that's the Be'lakor deck as of, what is it, 2026? This is where the deck is currently at. Plans for the future for the deck. I do plan on getting 2 extra lands to color fix better. So I do plan on picking up a starting town. I plan on picking up a City of Brass. And I also plan on picking up Echo Casting Symposium. That's one of the newer cards from Strixhaven. And that card is target player creates a token that's a copy of target creature you control. And then it has Paradigm. Paradigm is basically each upkeep you can cast a spell for free, essentially. Because you cast the sorcery spell, it exiles itself. And then the Paradigm says that if this card was cast and it's an exiled, each upkeep you can make a copy of the spell and cast it again. That's kind of like the rough translation of it, of what it does. It's not that expensive. It's like $5. I do plan on picking it up at some point in the future. I already know what I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut the Pain for All. I think that's an easy upgrade. The only thing that sucks is that it's two blue mana, which is not super ideal for the deck. Because as I said earlier on in the video, this deck does not have a ton of blue sources, so casting blue heavy spells is quite difficult for it. But I think for the ability to consistently copy demons on the field, I think that is definitely worth the price of entry. And now I'm just gonna put this away, wrap things up, and let you guys go, because I think we are, oh well, no, about an hour and 40. That's about average for these kind of videos. These tend to take a little more than an hour. I'm not getting any faster. So each one of these videos are probably going to be about an hour and a half, an hour, just shy of 2 hours. And it's a lot of talking, a lot of misreading. So I hope you're enjoying it. Enjoy the next month, because next month is going to be Commander decks for a while, which I needed the break. I needed the break from the other games that we were playing. So I'm quite happy to, at least on Mondays, come in, talk about Commander for a little while, talk about Magic, talk about the stuff I love about Magic, talk about the stuff I hate about Magic, and show you the cool cards that I picked up over the year. But anyways, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave you here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and checking out my cool demon deck. Quite a fan of it. You know, even after 3 years, I still have a lot of fun playing this deck. And I think the deck box is just wicked cool. I just always forget which way to put it in. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave you here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, spending time with me as always. I hope to catch you on the next stream where we talk about, I think we're going to talk about the, maybe the frog deck. But anyways, I'm going to leave you here, and I'll catch you in the next one. So until then, goodbye, adios, sayonara, say la vie, bye, 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 bye.